Moving on and going overseas to the US, where the president, Donald Trump, has not minced any words when it comes to immigrants in the United States of America. Donald Trump said, and here I am quoting him, "Why are we having all these people from shithole countries come here?" Media reports say that Donald Trump had a closed-door meeting with lawmakers on Thursday and described El Salvador, Haiti and certain African countries as shithole countries. Trump made these remarks after he was presented a proposal to restore protections for immigrants as part of an immigration deal. Trump wanted to know why the U.S. should accept such immigrants. After lawmakers suggested a visa lottery idea, Trump suggested that the U.S. should get more people from countries like Norway. Last year, the Trump administration said it would be the TPS designation for Haiti that could affect thousands of Haitian immigrations. Just this week, the Department of Homeland Security said it would end protections for more than 200,000 Salvadorians. And also, the White House rejected an immigration proposal to help people protected under the DACA, or Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program. And joining us on the broadcast to know more on this story, we have Sofia Adengo, WION's correspondent. Good evening, Sofia. Thank you very much for joining us. These are very heavy and offensive words. Is Trump like that, or is Trump responding to some of his electoral basis and therefore who's calling for less immigrants and more jobs for Americans? Is there a strategy behind it? What is it?
Well, from the perspective of Africans, in September of 2017, Trump had a completely different message. He hosted a number of African leaders in New York after the UN General Assembly, and he used much softer words and more encouraging words, talking about a, quote, partnership and a peace of prosperity and a range of economic issues, partnering in areas of trade and looking at Africa as a potential ground with which America could find its economic, next economic might, along with other parts of the world like Asia. However, now what we are seeing and the reaction that's coming out of a country like Nigeria, where we are now, and the greater African, countries, is really one of shock. The African Union has put out a statement really saying that they are, alarmed, and these are contemptuous terms in which Africa is being addressed. There are over 2 million African migrants living in the U.S. Many of those are from Nigeria, about 300,000, and many other parts of Africa. And this sort of rhetoric has not come across very well, especially with the African Union, saying that this is much too harsh and goes beyond or transcends beyond, diplomacy, and really speaks to the heart of the leadership of the United States, and really demanding an apology at this time, although the Nigerian government has not really openly said anything as being part of this greater African Union, really alarmed by these remarks by Donald Trump, and really hoping that the Trump administration will come out and address these issues directly.
And also, Sophia, I think this kind of language perpetrates the image of an Africa which is a rich and vibrant continent full of thriving economies, unfortunately, very much underreported also in the American medias. But how is Donald Trump perceived? I know you cannot speak and talk for the whole Africa, but how is his personality perceived, at least in Nigeria or generally in Africa?
Well, I'd have to say, African democracies and African leadership has always been very flexible. Each African nation has had a diverse account of its own leadership. So looking at Donald Trump, this is really no surprise to many African countries who've had to wrestle with sometimes leaders who are not necessarily very sharp when it comes to diplomacy from one country to another, or even countries that are dealing with oppressive governments. For example, in the case of Robert Mugabe, having served that country for many years, and really seeing that country run down or being fragile when it comes to its economic systems. So our outlook I say our, living on this continent and being here, the outlook for America is largely that they would like to see a Donald Trump who is taking the country forward. However, these derogatory remarks or contemptuous remarks that the African Union puts is really seeing the Americas in a new light and saying that, Africa is not what is being portrayed in the greater stream of the media, and that Africa is not only just an emerging market, but a real contender when it comes to trade, a real contender when it comes to various sectors like agriculture, tourism, and mining and industry, oil, and that it is just a matter of partnership and good sort of trade relations that will take Africa forward. And it's hoped that President Trump or any other leader, including America, would jump on this bandwagon.